In the heart of Cambridge, Massachusetts, where the ivy-clad walls of Harvard University whispered secrets of centuries past, Professor Elias Hawthorne was a man of enigmas. A renowned historian specializing in ancient architecture and forgotten civilizations, he had spent his life unraveling puzzles that time had buried. His lectures in Sanders Theater were legendary, drawing crowds of wide-eyed undergraduates and skeptical colleagues alike. Hawthorne could spin tales of lost Mayan temples or Egyptian labyrinths with such vividness that one might swear they heard the echo of ancient footsteps. His colleagues often joked that he could escape any intellectual trap, but no one could have foreseen that his own study would become the ultimate riddle, a room that seemed to swallow him whole. Born in 1960 in a small New England town, Elias Hawthorne had always been drawn to the hidden layers of history. His father, a stonemason, had instilled in him a fascination with structures, how they stood against time, how they concealed stories within their walls. After earning his PhD from Yale, Hawthorne joined Harvard's faculty in 1985, quickly rising to prominence with groundbreaking papers on architectural illusions in ancient societies. He argued that many historical sites weren't just buildings, but elaborate puzzles designed to protect secrets from the unworthy. His book, Veiled Edifices: The Hidden Geometry of Antiquity, became a bestseller in academic circles, though critics dismissed his more esoteric claims as flights of fancy bordering on pseudoscience. Hawthorne's personal life, however, was less triumphant. His first marriage to a fellow historian ended in divorce in the early 1990s, amid rumors of his obsessive work habits. Their son, Julian, born in 1988, grew up resenting the absent father, who prioritized dusty artifacts over family outings. After the divorce, Hawthorne remarried in 2000 to Lydia, a librarian at Widener Library, but she succumbed to cancer in 2018, leaving him a widower in his stately Victorian townhouse on Brattle Street. The house, built in 1892 by a prominent architect with alleged ties to Freemasonry, became his sanctuary and his obsession. He spent weekends restoring its original features, muttering about reversing the ravages of modernity. In recent years, Hawthorne's research had taken a turn toward the controversial. He fixated on reversible architecture, the idea that ancient builders incorporated mechanisms to alter spaces, like doors that could swing both ways or walls that shifted to reveal hidden passages. His latest project involved a newly discovered Mayan codex, acquired through dubious channels from a Guatemalan excavation. The codex, he claimed, detailed portals of illusion in temple designs, where priests could vanish during rituals to awe the masses. Colleagues whispered that age was catching up to him. At 65, Hawthorne's once sharp mind seemed to blur the line between history and hallucination. It was a crisp autumn evening in October 2025 when the disappearance occurred. The leaves on Brattle Street had turned a fiery red, crunching underfoot as students hurried home from late seminars. Hawthorne's townhouse stood sentinel among its neighbors, its gabled roof silhouetted against the darkening sky. That night, he had invited his graduate assistant, Amelia Voss, over for a late discussion on the Mayan Codex. Amelia, a brilliant 28-year-old PhD candidate from Berlin, had been working with him for 2 years. She admired his intellect, but worried about his isolation. "You're burying yourself in these books, Professor," she had teased him once. "One day, they'll bury you." Amelia arrived at 8 p.m. sharp, as was her habit. The air was chill, carrying the scent of wood smoke from nearby chimneys. She pushed open the front door, which Hawthorne always left unlocked for her visits, a quirk she found endearing but risky in a city like Cambridge. "Professor, the door's unlocked," she called out as she entered the foyer, hanging her wool coat on the antique rack carved with intricate Masonic symbols. The house was dimly lit, the hallway sconces casting long shadows on the Persian rugs. No response came from the study at the end of the hall. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the parlor, its pendulum swinging like a metronome counting down to some unseen event. Curious, Amelia walked down the hall, her heels clicking on the polished hardwood. The walls were adorned with framed maps of ancient sites: Chichen Itza, Giza, Stonehenge, all annotated in Hawthorne's precise handwriting. She knocked on the study door, solid oak, heavy and unyielding, with a brass knocker shaped like a sphinx. "Professor Hawthorne, are you in there?" Still nothing. She tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. A flicker of unease stirred in her chest. Hawthorne was punctual to a fault. He never locked her out. Panic rising, she pounded harder. "Elias, open up!" Her voice echoed through the empty house. She pulled out her phone and dialed his number, straight to voicemail. "This isn't right," she muttered, her German accent thickening with stress. She texted him, "Professor, I'm outside the study. Door locked. Everything okay?" No reply. Heart racing, she considered breaking in, but thought better of it. Instead, she called the police. Within minutes, sirens pierced the quiet street. Detective Marcus Hale of the Cambridge Police Department arrived with a small team, their cruiser's lights flashing blue and red against the townhouse's facade. Hale was a seasoned investigator in his mid-40s, with a sharp mind, honed by years of unraveling Boston's underbelly crimes. Standing at 6'2" with a build forged from gym sessions and stakeouts, he had a no-nonsense demeanor softened by kind hazel eyes. His reputation preceded him. He had cracked the infamous art theft at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in 2019, recovering stolen Rembrandts hidden in a Back Bay basement. More recently, he dismantled a ring of cyber fraudsters, targeting MIT students. But this call felt different, like stepping into one of those old Agatha Christie novels his late mother adored, where the impossible happened in the most mundane settings. "Miss Voss," Hale said, his voice steady as he stepped inside, shaking off the autumn chill. He wore a rumpled trench coat over a suit, his badge glinting under the foyer light. "Tell me everything. No detail too small." His team, 2 uniformed officers and a forensics tech, fanned out, securing the perimeter. Amelia, trembling slightly, recounted the evening. She had texted Hawthorne at 7:45 p.m. to confirm their meeting. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, his usual curt affirmation. She showed Hale the message log. No signs of forced entry in the house. The front door was unlocked, windows intact. The study door was locked from the inside, the key still in place. With Amelia's quick digital consent, officers forced it open, the door creaking as it swung inward. The study was a scholar's sanctum, windowless, lined floor to ceiling with bookshelves groaning under the weight of leather-bound volumes. A massive mahogany desk dominated the center, cluttered with yellowed papers, a half-empty glass of single malt scotch, and an open laptop displaying a high-resolution scan of the Mayan Codex. The air smelled of aged leather, pipe tobacco, and a faint undercurrent of incense. Sandalwood, perhaps, from one of Hawthorne's rituals, to invoke historical spirits. A Persian rug covered the hardwood floor, and a Tiffany lamp cast a warm glow over the chaos. But Professor Hawthorne was nowhere to be found. Hale's eyes narrowed as he scanned the room. No windows, no vents large enough for a man to crawl through. Ceilings solid plaster, no attic access. Floors hardwood over concrete foundation. City records confirm its original. This is a classic locked room mystery. He paced the perimeter, his boots thudding softly. The walls were adorned with artifacts, a jade Mayan mask, an Egyptian scarab amulet, a Celtic torque. All authentic, all priceless. Then came the detail that twisted the knife: the door handle. On the inside of the door, where one would expect the handle to be on the right side, as the door swung inward from the left, hinges on the right, it was inexplicably on the left. "That's impossible," one officer muttered, shining a flashlight on the brass fitting. "Handles don't just switch sides. The door would have to be reich ung." Amelia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "He mentioned something about the door last week. Said he was reversing history or some nonsense. I thought it was a metaphor for his research on reversible architecture." She leaned against the wall, her face pale. He was excited about it, like he'd discovered a secret in his own house. Hale sealed the room with yellow tape and began his investigation in earnest. First, he interviewed neighbors. Mrs. Eleanor Finch, the elderly widow next door, a retired English professor with a penchant for Earl Grey and mystery novels, claimed she heard a muffled thud around 8 p.m., but dismissed it as Hawthorne dropping another heavy book. "The man was always clattering about with those relics," she said, peering over her half-moon glasses. "Like living next to Indiana Jones, but without the charm." Mr. Raj Patel, on the other side, a software engineer from India, had been working late and saw nothing unusual. Security cameras from nearby homes, reviewed on-site, showed Amelia arriving alone at 8 p.m., her bicycle chained to the fence. No suspicious activity, no lurking figures, no unfamiliar vehicles. Back in the study, Hale examined the door closely. It was original to the house, with brass fittings tarnished by age. The handle on the outside was standard, right side, as expected for a left-swinging door. But inside, left side. The lock mechanism was engaged from within, the key turned. "Someone tampered with this," Hale murmured to his partner, Sergeant Lena Torres, a sharp-witted Latina officer in her 30s. "But how and why? It's like the room was designed to confuse." As forensics swept the room, dusting for prints and swabbing surfaces, they found no fingerprints other than Hawthorne's and Amelia's from previous visits. No blood, no signs of struggle. The desk chair was upright, papers undisturbed. The professor's wallet, containing $200 cash and credit cards, sat beside his phone, which was on silent mode. His keys dangled from a hook on the wall. His tweed coat hung on the back of the chair, a pipe still warm in the pocket. It was as if he had simply evaporated mid-thought. Word spread quickly through Harvard's corridors. By morning, the Crimson newspaper ran a headline: "Harvard historian vanishes in locked study. Foul play." Suspected? Rumors swirled like leaves in the quad. Was it suicide? A depressed academic taking a final exit? A hoax? Hawthorne staging his own disappearance for publicity? Or something more sinister, tied to his research? The professor had been vocal about his controversial theory that certain ancient structures held hidden passages not visible to the untrained eye, portals disguised as everyday features. His latest paper, unpublished but shared with a few trusted colleagues, hinted at a discovery in his own home, a remnant from the house's original architect, Theodore Blackwood, a Freemason with ties to esoteric societies. Blackwood, Hale learned from a quick archive search, had designed the townhouse with symbolic elements, including reversible doors in Masonic lore, symbolizing duality, life and death, seen and unseen. Hale dug deeper into Hawthorne's background. He visited the history department, interviewing Dr. Miriam Levy, the department chair, a stern woman in her 50s, with a bob haircut and a no-tolerance policy for drama. Elias was brilliant but eccentric, she said, sipping coffee in her office overlooking the yard. Lately, he'd been paranoid about his codex, claimed rivals were after it. Perhaps a competitor snatched him. She mentioned a feud with Professor Victor Lang from Yale, who had accused Hawthorne of fabricating evidence in a joint paper years ago. Lang, contacted by phone, denied involvement. I wouldn't cross the street to see him, let alone kidnap the fool. Then there was Julian Hawthorne, the estranged son. Hale drove to New York the next day, navigating the bustling streets of Brooklyn to Julian's loft in Bushwick. Julian, 37, was a struggling artist, tall like his father, but with disheveled hair and paint-stained clothes. His studio was chaotic, canvases depicting abstract ruins leaning against walls. "Dad cut me off," Julian admitted bitterly over cheap coffee. "Said I was wasting my life on frivolous daubings. We argued 3 weeks ago about money. He owed me from Mom's estate. But I didn't hurt him, I swear. I was at a gallery opening that night." Alibi witnesses confirmed it, but Hale noted Julian's mounting debts, $50,000 in loans, a gambling habit hinted at by casino receipts. Amelia Voss came under scrutiny too. As Hawthorne's assistant, she had access to his grants, over $200,000 in research funds, and his unpublished work. Motive? Perhaps jealousy over his acclaim or a hidden affair. Rumors in the department suggested intimacy. Amelia blushed when confronted. "We were close, but professionally," she insisted. Her alibi was ironclad. GPS data from her phone and campus security footage showed her leaving Widener Library at 7:50 p.m., cycling straight to Brattle Street. Still, Hale pressed. Did he ever mention enemies? Or this reversing history business? Amelia recalled a conversation. He said the house had secrets, built by Blackwood to test initiates. Something about doors that forget their purpose. Days turned into a week. Hale pored over blueprints of the townhouse, obtained from city archives in Boston's Government Center. The study was indeed sealed. No secret compartments, no trapdoors. The dumbwaiter shaft, noted as decommissioned, ran from the basement kitchen to the upper floors, but was walled off in the 1950s renovations. Yet the door handle nagged at him. He called in a locksmith expert, Mr. Otto Klein, a grizzled veteran from Germany, with a thick accent. Klein examined the door. This handle was installed backward. The door was hung to swing the opposite way originally, maybe during renovations. See the hinge scars? Subtle, but there. That sparked a memory. Hawthorne's journal, found on the desk amid the clutter, was a leather-bound tome filled with sketches and cryptic entries. The last one, dated the day before, read, "The room that forgot its door. In ancient temples, doors were illusions. Reverse the handle, reverse the fate. Blackwood knew. The shaft awaits." Hale flipped through earlier pages. Diagrams of the Mayan Codex showing reversible glyphs. Notes on Freemasonic symbols in the house's woodwork. Inspired, Hale decided to recreate the scene. He cleared the room of personnel and locked himself in the study alone. Key inside. Handle on the wrong side. The silence was oppressive, broken only by his breathing. He sat at the desk, mimicking Hawthorne's position, sipping from a mock Scotch glass. His eyes wandered to the bookshelves. One section behind the desk held volumes on architecture, Vitruvius, Palladio, and obscure texts like Reversible Realms by an anonymous 19th century author. On a whim, he pulled the book. A soft click echoed. The shelf swung outward slightly. Not a full door, but enough to reveal a narrow cavity, dust motes dancing in the revealed space. "Son of a gun," Hale whispered, his heart pounding. The cavity led to the forgotten dumbwaiter shaft, a relic from the Victorian era, used for serving meals between floors. It descended to the basement, where a small window, barred but unlocked, opened to the narrow alley behind the house. The shaft was cramped, barely wide enough for a man, but feasible for dragging an unconscious body. But the professor was gone, not escaped. Forensics called back, found traces of chloroform on a rag wedged in the shaft's pulley system. Fibers from a dark jacket matched samples from Julian's loft. This wasn't a vanishing act. It was abduction. Piecing it together, Hale uncovered the plot. Julian had a key to the basement from childhood visits, duplicated years ago. Motivated by debt and resentment, he had hired a shady accomplice, Derek Voss, no relation to Amelia, a former Harvard student expelled for plagiarism in 2022. Derek, bitter toward Hawthorne for reporting him, agreed for a cut of the insurance payout. They tampered with the door weeks earlier, during one of Hawthorne's absences at a conference in Mexico. Reversing the handle involved rehanging the door subtly, a trick from the professor's own lectures on reversible architecture, where ancient doors could be flipped to confuse intruders. The wrong side was a red herring, meant to suggest supernatural impossibility and delay investigation. On the night of the disappearance, Julian accessed the basement via a side door, unlocked as per Hawthorne's habit, ascended the dumbwaiter, which Hawthorne had unknowingly restored as part of his historical reversal project, documented in emails to contractors. He emerged behind the bookshelf, which Blackwood had designed as a Masonic initiation portal. Julian drugged his father with chloroform-soaked rag, dragged him back down the shaft, explaining the thud Mrs. Finch heard, and fled through the alley window with Derek's help. They loaded Hawthorne into a rented van, traced via license plate from alley cams, and drove to a remote cabin in the Adirondacks, upstate New York. The door remained locked from inside because Hawthorne had locked it himself before settling at his desk, unaware of the impending attack. The motive? Insurance fraud. Hawthorne had a $2 million life policy, with Julian as sole beneficiary after Lydia's death. They planned to stage a mysterious disappearance to collect without a body, declaring death after 7 years under Massachusetts law, while holding the professor captive, feeding him just enough to keep him alive, but disoriented. Hale's team, coordinating with New York State Police, raided the cabin based on Julian's phone GPS data, pinged from a burner app, and credit card traces for supplies. The cabin, a run-down log structure amid pine forests, was surrounded at dawn. Inside, they found Elias Hawthorne, bound to a chair but alive, his beard grown scraggly, eyes wild from days of isolation and minimal food. The room, it forgot its door, he muttered, echoing his journal, as medics checked his vitals. Julian and Derek were arrested on site, caught mid-argument over splitting the non-existent spoils. Charges: kidnapping, attempted fraud, assault. As Hale wrapped up the case back in Cambridge, he stood in the study one last time. The door handle had been fixed by Klein, swinging properly now. The bookshelf was secured with new locks, the dumbwaiter boarded up. Sunlight filtered through a newly installed window. Hawthorne's request for less mystery, more light. Amelia, cleared of suspicion, had come to collect the professor's notes for his recovery. "You solved it, Detective," she said, a grateful smile breaking through her fatigue. Like one of his puzzles. Hale shrugged modestly. Puzzles are only as good as their solvers. But sometimes, the real mystery is why people build their own traps. Resentment, greed, forgotten family ties. He glanced at the Mayan codex on the laptop. Now evidence, but destined for publication. Your professor was right about one thing. History hides in plain sight. We just have to reverse our perspective to see it. Professor Hawthorne recovered slowly in Massachusetts General Hospital, his ordeal adding a chapter to his life story. He published his paper with a new addendum, Modern Illusions, a personal encounter with reversible fate. In it, he thanked Hale, dubbing him the modern Theseus who navigated my labyrinth. Julian, facing 20 years, pleaded for reconciliation in court, but Hawthorne, ever the historian, saw it as another illusion. Forgiveness would come, perhaps, but not without time. And in Cambridge, the tale of the room that forgot its door became legend, a whispered story in Harvard's halls, a reminder that even in a locked world, escape is often hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right hand to turn the handle.